Hello, hello, hello! Greetings, salutations, konnichiwa, and every other form of green across this vast, marvelous multiverse. I am Matsu Quinox. This is Horace, and welcome back, my dear, marvelous, wonderful scholars, to the study. Hello there, hello there, hello there. Hello there, Private Maverick. Good evening to you. Hello, all you marvelous, dear, wonderful scholars. Wherever you are, whenever you are across this vast, marvelous omniverse. Hello there, Firefly. Welcome as well. Good evening to you as well. ah, and I need some water for this. Ah, you know, it always pays to start a stream off with a little bit of silliness. So, my dear scholars, how are you all this evening, afternoon, or morning? Wherever you are, whenever you are across this omniverse. Are you doing well? Oh, excuse me. Ah, for myself and Horace, it's been okay. No complaints, no troubles, no issues. Everything's been all right. Private Maverick, I am doing good. Oh, good. Glad to hear it. Glad to hear it. I'm glad to hear that you're doing all right, Private Maverick. Well, things have been quiet on my end. And things have been quiet in the study. Oh, I almost forgot. My dear scholars, I think I got this right. Happy World Book Day. Yes, apparently it's World Book Day. Perfect timing, isn't it? So, are any of you celebrating this wonderful day dedicated to literature and books and all sorts of reading? If you are, what manner of books are you reading today? And of course, I mean every sort of book, not just written books, but audio books and manga and any sort of written material. Private Maverick didn't even know. Oh, that's okay. I honestly didn't know until this morning. Well, this morning, as in the study morning. You know. You know what I mean. But yes, happy World Book Day to all you wonderful scholars. Horace says the same thing as well. So, I should probably talk about today's stream then, before I forget, because I am so often forgettable. Need to hydrate for this. That's one problem I'm having in the study lately. It's been drying out a lot, so I'll be drinking a lot of water for this. So tonight, my dear scholars, we are continuing our reading of Agatha Christie's The Murder at the Vicarage. Long story short, a man, Colonel Prothros, has been murdered in the village of St. Mary Mead within the vicarage. Currently, there are no suspects. Previously, it was believed to have been done by, oh my goodness gracious, I forget the names of all these characters. Um, oh my goodness gracious. I wish they had a sort of a character note. Do they have a character note? They do not have a character list here. Um, who was the previous one? I really need to make notes before I do this. So it was believed either to be Mrs. Prothero or what is the name of that character? Lawrence Redding, who was a painter. However, they managed to have an excuse for both of them, an alibi, as it were. So now the police have no idea who did the murder. When we last left, we were about to be introduced to Miss Marples. Miss Marple being one of the local old ladies in the village, and who seems to know a little bit more than she lets on. We're about to meet her nephew, a famous novelist named Raymond West. So then, my dear scholars, shall we begin our reading of The Murder at the Vicarage? Because I can't talk tonight. Apparently, I don't have any other conversation to do. I really didn't have anything prepared. Horace, why didn't you remind me to prepare something for tonight? It's not your job. Well, if somebody might remind you, oh, oh yes, that's a good point. Sorry, Horace. Okay. So then, Pirate Maverick. Yes, more mysteries to uncover. All right. Well, my dear scholars, sit back, relax, have a hot or cold beverage of your liking, dim the lights if you wish, and let us continue our reading of Agatha Christie's The Murder at the Vicarage. Excuse me. We're actually making quite a good bit of headway in this story. There's not much left. Chapter 21. I cannot say that I have at any time had a great admiration for Mr. Raymond West. He is, I know, supposed to be a brilliant novelist and has made quite a name as a poet. His poems have no capital letters in them, which is, I believe, the essence of modernity. His books are about unpleasant people living lives of surpassing dullness. Wow, that is harsh. He has a tolerant affection for Aunt Jane, whom he alludes to in his presence as a survival. She listens to his talk with a flattering interest, and if there is sometimes an amused twinkle in her eye, I am sure he never notices it. He fastened on Griselda at once with flattering abruptness. They discussed modern plays, and from there went on to modern schemes of decoration. Griselda affects to laugh at Raymond West, but she is, I think, susceptible to his conversation. During my dull conversation with Miss Marple, I heard at intervals the reiteration, "Buried as you are down here." It began at last to irritate me. I said suddenly, "I suppose you consider us very much out of the things down here." Raymond West waved his cigarette. I regard Mary Mead. I regard Saint Mary Mead, he said authoritatively, as a stagnant pool. He looked at us, prepared for resentment at his statement, but somewhat, I think, to his chagrin, no one displayed annoyance. He's a jerk. That is not really a very good simile, dear Raymond, said Miss Marple briskly. Nothing, I believe, is so full of life under the microscope as a drop of water from a stagnant pool. Life of a kind, admitted the novelist. It's all much the same kind, really, isn't it? Said Miss Marple. You compare yourself to a denizen, to a denizen of a stagnant pond, Aunt Jane. My dear, you said something of the sort in your last book, I remember. No clever young man likes having his works quoted against himself. Raymond West was no exception. That was entirely different, he snapped. Life is, after all, very much the same everywhere, said Miss Marple in her placid voice. Getting born, you know, and growing up, and coming into contact with other people, getting jostled, and then marriage and more babies. And finally death, said Raymond West, and not death with a death certificate always. Death in life. Talking of death, said Griselda, you know we've had a murder here. Raymond West waved murder away with his cigarette. Murder is so crude, he said. I take no interest in it. That statement did not take me for a moment. They say all the world loves a lover. Apply that saying to murder and you have an even more infallible truth. No one can fail to be interested in a murder. Simple people like Griselda and myself can admit the fact. But anyone, like Raymond West, has to pretend to be bored. At any rate, for the first 5 minutes. Miss Marple, however, gave her nephew away by remarking, Raymond and I have been discussing nothing else all through dinner. I take a great interest in all the local news, said Raymond hastily. He smiled benignly and tolerantly at Miss Marple. Have you a theory, Mr. West? Asked Griselda. Logically, said Raymond West, again flourishing his cigarette, only one person could have killed Prothero. Yes, said Griselda. We hung upon his words with flattering attention. The vicar, said Raymond, and pointed an accusing finger at me. Oh my goodness, the vicar did it? Oh, would that be a... Oh, that would be quite a plot swerve there, my dear scholars. I gasped. Well, no wonder. I mean, you're the main narrator. Of course, he reassured me. I know you didn't do it. Life is never what it should be. But think of the drama, the fitness. Church warden murdered in the vicar's study by the vicar. Delicious. And the motive? I inquired. Oh, that's interesting. He sat up, allowed his cigarette to go out. Inferiority complex, I think. Possibly too many inhibitions. I should like to write the story of the affair. Amazingly complex. Week after week, year after year, he's seen the man at vestry meetings, at choir boy outings, handling round the bag in church, bringing it to the altar. Always he dislikes the man. Always he chokes down his dislike. It's unchristian. He won't encourage it. And so it festers underneath, and one day... He made a graphic gesture. Griselda turned to me. Private Maverick, akin to the butler did it. You know, that would be an interesting thing to look into. When was the first time the butler doing it used? Actually, let's pause our story reading and let's take a look. I am curious now, and when I get curious, I cannot help myself. When do they first use the butler did it? Ha. The phrase and trope, the butler did it, was attributed to American mystery author Mary Robert Reinhardt, specifically originating from her 1930 novel The Door. Huh. Interesting. The phrase doesn't actually appear in the book, but it was used a lot during that period of time. Apparently, it was used quite a bit to the point that one individual, S.S. Van Dyne, advised against using servants as culprits in one of the in a writing he said called 20 Rules for Writing Detective Stories. All right, that's interesting, my dear scholars, isn't it? Huh. You'll learn something new every time. Where are we? Okay, here we are. Have you ever felt like that, Len? Never, I said truthfully. Yet I hear you were wishing him out of the world not so long ago, remarked Miss Marple. That miserable Dennis. But my fault, of course, for ever making the remark. I'm afraid. Yeah, excuse me. Excuse me. I'm afraid I was, I said. It was a stupid remark to make, but really I'd had a very trying morning with him. That's disappointing, said Raymond West. Because, of course, if your subconscious were really planning to do him in, it would never have allowed you to make that remark. He sighed. Darth, I would have been here 6 or 7 minutes ago, but I had to finish making dinner. Me here now. Ah, welcome, Darth. Good to have you here. We are just finishing up the first chapter of the night. It's a very short chapter. Where was I? He sighed. My theory falls to the ground. This is probably a very ordinary murder, a revengeful poacher or something of that sort. Miss Crabbe came to see me this afternoon, said Miss Marple. I met her in the village and asked her if she would like to see my garden. Is she fond of gardens? I don't think so, said Miss Marple with a faint twinkle. But it would make a very useful excuse for talk, don't you think? I'll be right back, my dear scholars. I have to check up on something with Virgil for a moment. Be right back. Sorry about that, my dear scholars. I thought I heard Virgil bumping into something, but no, it was just my imagination. Where were we? Excuse me. Okay. Oh, I don't think so, said Miss Marple with a faint twinkle. But it makes a very useful excuse for talk, don't you think? What did you make of her? Asked Griselda. I don't believe she's really so bad. She's volunteered a lot of information. Really a lot of information, said Miss Marple. About herself, you know, and her people. They all seem to be dead, or in India. Very sad. By the way, she has gone to Old Hall for the weekend. What? Yes, it seems Mrs. Prothero asked her, or she suggested it to Mrs. Prothero. I don't quite know which way about it was. To do some secretarial work for her. There are so many letters to cope with. It turned out rather fortunately. Dr. Stone being away, she has nothing to do. What an excitement this borough has been. Stone? Said Raymond. Is that the archaeologist fellow? Yes, he is excavating a burrow on the Prothero property. He's a good man, said Raymond, wonderfully keen on his job. I met him at a dinner not long ago, and we had a most interesting talk. I must look him up. Unfortunately, I said, he's just gone to London for the weekend. Why, you actually ran into him at the station this afternoon. I ran into you. You had a little fat man with you, with glasses on. Yes, Dr. Stone. But my dear fellow, that wasn't Stone. Oh my goodness, dear scholars, what? Not stone. Not the archaeologist I know him. Not the archaeologist. I know him quite well. The man wasn't stone. Not the faintest resemblance. We stared at each other. In particular, I stared at Miss Marple. Extraordinary, I said. The suitcase, said Miss Marple. But why? It reminds me of the time the man went round pretending to be the gas inspector, murmured Miss Marple. Quite a little haul he got. An impostor, said Raymond West. Now this is really interesting. The question is, has it anything to do with the murder? Not, not necessarily, I said, but... I looked at Miss Marple. It is, she said, a peculiar thing. Another peculiar thing. Yes, I said, rising. I rather feel the inspector ought to be told about this at once. Oh, I was not, I did not expect that. So the Dr. Stone we've been following through this entire story has been a fake, an imposter. Oh my goodness gracious, I wonder what that's all about. So has this man been going around and... So the suitcase suggests he's been stealing things. What does that make of her? Oh, congratulations on the 5-stream streak, Darth. Congratulations. Wonderful. Aw. Glad to have you here for all those streams. I almost said streak. Excuse me. Private Maverick. Curious indeed. Yes, it is very curious. Curiouser and curiouser. Excuse me. Chapter 22. I wonder if they're going to follow this up. Inspector Slack's orders, once I had got him on the phone, were brief and emphatic. Nothing was to get about. In particular, Miss Crown was not to be alarmed. In the meantime, a search was to be instituted for the suitcase in the neighborhood of the burrow. Griselda and I returned home very excited over this new development. We could not say much with Dennis present, as we faithfully promised Inspector Slack to breathe no word to anybody. Darth, see, Matsu does like me here to torture him with puns and six. No! Not that! Which, by the way, my first message had that and it got by you. Oh! 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 No. No! Darth, why? Oh! No! I'm just gonna sit under my desk and I'm just gonna die of cringe. Uh, uh. Okay, I know I have to continue the stream, but that was awful. Uh, that was terrible. In any case, Dennis was full of his own troubles. He came into my study and began fingering things and shuffling his feet and looking thoroughly embarrassed. Paramedic Darth. What is it, Dennis? I said at last. Uncle Len, I don't want to go to sea. I was astonished. The boy had been so very decided about his career up to now. Chewy jelly, haha, he said, fingering. Yes, this book is full of this sort of language. Hello there, Chewy jelly, welcome. And yeah, You should have been here. Were you here for the earlier stream where for some reason they use that term, a certain term for describing someone shouting or talking? Oh god. Darth began fingering. This is a very dirty village. Yes, I have. Oh, oh dear. Give me 1 second, my dear scholars. I gotta do a. You can't see it on your end, but I can see something because I don't think I've got my. I don't think I've got my mod here. Oh, wait. Okay, had to do something on my end. You couldn't see it, but you were so keen on it. Yes, but I've changed my mind. What do you want to do? I want to go into finance. I was even more surprised. What do you mean, finance? Just that. I want to go into the city. Georgia, yes, I have. Oh, that one. But my dear boy, I am sure you would not like the life, even if I obtained a post for you in a bank. Dennis said that wasn't what he meant. He didn't want to go into a bank. I asked him what exactly he did mean, and of course, as I suspected, the boy didn't really know. By going into finance, he simply meant getting rich quickly, which with the optimism of youth he imagined was a certainty if one went into the city. I disabused him of this notion as gently as I could. What put it into your head? I asked. You were so satisfied with the idea of going to sea. I know, Uncle Len, but I've been thinking. I should want to marry someday, and I mean, you've got to be rich to marry a girl. Darth, Matsu takes from my self-ducted ejaculating words. Oh god, I'm choking. That was just. I was surprised no one clipped from that stream. Oh, that was insane. That was funny. Oh, dude, it was terrible. He was like, I know, Uncle Len, but I've been thinking. I should want to marry someday, and I mean, you've got to be rich to marry a girl. Facts disprove your theory, I said. I know, but a real girl, I mean, a girl who's used to things. It was very vague, but I thought I knew what he meant. You know, I said gently, all girls aren't like Lettuce Prothrow. He fired up at once. You're awfully unfair to her. You don't like her. Griselda doesn't either. She says she's tiresome. From the feminine point of view, Griselda is quite right. Lettuce is tiresome. I could quite realize, however, that a boy would resent the adjective. If only people made a few allowances. Why, even the Harley Napers are going about grousing about her at a time like this. Just because she left their old tennis party a bit early. Why should she stay if she was bored? Jolly decent of her to go at all, I think. Quite a favor, I said, but Dennis suspected no malice. He was full of his own grievances on Lettuce's behalf. She's awfully unselfish, really. Just to show you. She made me stay. Naturally, I wanted to go too, but she wouldn't hear of it. It was too bad on the Napiers, so just to please her, I stopped on a quarter of an hour. Wait a second. Wait. So Lettuce was the party on the same day as the Prothrow murder, but Lettuce left early. That's interesting, and made him stay, not go with her. That's interesting. Wonder if that's important. Sorry. The young have very curious views on unselfishness. And now I hear Susan Hartley Napier is going about everywhere saying Lettuce has rotten manners. If I were you, I said, I shouldn't worry. It's all very well, but... He broke off. I'd do anything for Lettuce. Very few of us can do anything for anyone else. Darth. Wait, Lettuce? Is that the name of the book? Is that the name in the book? Yeah, Lettuce is the name of the girl in the book. Her name is Lettuce. It's a very... I don't know if that was a common name back then, or proper name, but her name is Lettuce. Very few of us can do anything for anyone else, I said. However much we wish it, we are powerless. I wish I were dead, said Dennis. Oh, that's sad. Darth, I wonder if Lettuce likes Caesar's dressing. I can't really call that a pun, so I can't get angry about it. That is a good point. That's a good little point. Poor lad. Calf love is a virulent disease. I forbore to say any of the obvious and probably irritating things which come so easily to one's lips. Instead, I said good night and went up to bed. I took the 8 o'clock service the following morning, and when I returned, found Griselda sitting at the breakfast table with an open note in her hand. It was from Anne Prothrow. Dear Griselda, if you and the vicar could come up and lunch here quietly today, I should be so very grateful. Something very strange has occurred, and I should like Mr. Clement's advice. Please don't mention this when you come, as I have said nothing to anyone. With love, yours affectionately, Anne Prothrow. Oh, this is a longer one. We must go, of course, said Griselda. I agreed. I wonder what can have happened. I wondered too. You know, I said to Griselda, I don't feel we are really at the end of this case yet. You mean not till someone has really been arrested? No, I said, I didn't mean that. I mean that there are ramifications, undercurrents, that we know nothing about. There are a whole lot of things to clear up before we get at the truth. You mean things that don't really matter, but that get in the way? Yes, I think that expresses my meaning very well. I think we're all making a great fuss, said Dennis, helping himself to marmalade. It's a jolly good thing old Prothero is dead. Nobody liked him. Oh, I know the police have got to worry. It's their job. But I rather hope myself they'll never find out. I should hate to see Slack promoted, going about swelling with importance over his cleverness. I am human enough to feel that I agree over the matter of Slack's promotion. A man who goes about systematically rubbing people up the wrong way cannot hope to be popular. Dr. Haydock thinks rather like I do, went on Dennis. He'd never give a excuse me. He'd never give a murderer up to justice. He said so. I think that is the danger of Haydock's views. They may be sound in themselves. It is not for me to say, but they produce an impression on the young, careless mind which I am sure Haydock himself never meant to convey. Oh, hello there, Kintron. Welcome. She's in literature, so I would say Hidden Valley. I know this should be a joke. I know that that's probably a pun, Kinshon, but I can't tell. So I am gonna half-heartedly scold you, Kintron, because I can't figure it out. Darth, a man rubbing people up the wrong way. I'm glad I'm not doing any sort of drinking game for this because the amount of innuendos in this book are tremendously dangerous. Griselda looked out of the window and remarked that there were reporters in the garden. I suppose they're photographing the study windows again, she said with a sigh. We had suffered a good deal in this way. There was first the idle curiosity of the village. Everyone had come to gape and stare. There were next the reporters armed with cameras in the village again to watch the reporters. In the end, we had to have a constable from Much Benham on duty outside the window. Well, I said, the funeral is tomorrow morning. After that, surely the excitement will die down. I noticed a few reporters hanging about Old Hall when we arrived there. They accosted me with various queries, to which I gave the invariable answer, we had found it the best, that I had nothing to say. We were shown by the butler into the drawing room, the sole occupant of which turned out to be Miss Cram, apparently in a state of high enjoyment. Excuse me. This is a surprise, isn't it? She said as she shook hands. I never should have thought of such a thing, but Mrs. Prothrow's kind, isn't she? And of course it isn't what you might call nice for a young girl to be staying alone at a place like the Blue Boar, reporters about and all. And of course it's not as though I haven't been able to make myself useful. You really need a secretary at a time like this. And Miss Prothrow doesn't do anything to help, does she? I was amused to notice that the old animosity against Lettuce persisted, but that the girl had apparently become a worn partisan of Anne's. At the same time, I wondered if the story of her coming here was strictly accurate. In her account, the initiative had come from Anne, but I wondered if that was really so. Kinshon, though naming people after leafy vegetables has been around for a while. I mean, think of Rapunzel. That is true. That is very true. It isn't uncommon. The first mention of disliking to be at the Blue Boar alone might have easily come from the girl herself. Whilst keeping an open mind on the subject, I did not fancy that Miss Cram was strictly truthful. At that moment, Anne Prothrow entered the room. She was dressed very quietly in black. She carried in her hand a Sunday paper, which she held on out to me with a rueful glance. I've never had any experience of this sort of thing. It's pretty ghastly, isn't it? I saw a report at the inquest. I just said that I was terribly upset and had nothing to say. And then he asked me if I wasn't very anxious to find my husband's murderer. I said yes. And then whether I had any suspicions. And I said no. And whether I didn't think the crime showed local knowledge. And I said it seemed to certainly. And that was all. And now look at this. In the middle of the page was a photograph, evidently taken at least 10 years ago. Heaven knows where they had dug it out. There were large headlines. Widow declares she will never rest till she has hunted down husband's murderer. Mrs. Prothrow, the widow of the murdered man, is certain that the murderer must be looked for locally. She has suspicions, but no certainty. She declared herself prostrated with grief, but reiterated her determination to hunt down the murderer. It doesn't sound like me, does it? I dare say it might have been worse, I said, handing back the paper. Impudent, aren't they? Said Miss Cram. I'd like to see one of those fellows trying to get something out of me. By the twinkle in Griselda's eye, I was convinced that she regarded this statement as being more literally true than Miss Cram intended it to appear. Luncheon was announced, and we went in. Lettuce did not come in till halfway through the meal, when she drifted into the empty place with a smile for Griselda and a nod for me. I watched her with some attention for reasons of my own, but she seemed much the same vague creature as usual. Kintron, I could probably name. You see, Darth slipped one over my head earlier, Kintron. I'm not going to be fooled again. I am not. No way. You're not going to get the best of me, Kintron. No, 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 no. You could probably name several vegetable or plant names. Ha 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 ha. I can play this game too, Kintron. I can play it all night. You're not going to catch me off guard. No. Where am I watched her with some attention for reasons of my own, but she seemed much the same vague creature as usual. Extremely pretty. That, in fairness, I had to admit. Oh, thank you for the hydrate, Kintron. I'm gonna have to grab the other water. Give me 1 second. Should probably keep these a little colder. Excuse me. She was still not wearing mourning, but was dressed in a shade of pale green that brought out all the delicacy of her fair coloring. Wait, her name's Lettuce, and she wears green? Is that on purpose? Excuse me. After we had had coffee, Anne said quietly, I want to have a little talk with the vicar. I will take him up to my sitting room. Kintron, I'm sure she just had a Romaine heritage. Fell into that one, didn't I? Darn it. Darth, it's not just leafy vegetables. The Dragon Ball franchise gave the Saiyans veggie-related names. Kakarot, Vegeta, Bardock, Raditz, to name a few. That is true. That is absolutely true. They got more. They got some creative ones in there. I want to have a little talk with the vicar. I will take him up to my sitting room. At last I was to learn the reason of our summons. I rose and followed her up the stairs. She paused at the door of the room. As I was about to speak, she stretched out a hand to stop me. She remained listening, looking down toward the hall. Good. They are going out into the garden. No, don't go in there. We can go straight up. Much to my surprise, she led the way along the corridor to the extremity of the wing. Here a narrow ladder-like staircase rose to the floor above, and she mounted it, I following. We found ourselves in a dusty boarded passage. Anne opened a door and led me into a large, dim attic, which was evidently used as a lumber room. There were trunks there, old broken furniture, a few stacked pictures, and the many countless odds and ends which a lumber room collects. My surprise was so evident that she smiled faintly. Darth, bravo, bravo. Do not, Darth, encourage Kintron. We do not encourage the fairy tale wolf. First of all, I must explain. I am sleeping very lightly just now. Last night, or rather this morning, about 3 o'clock, I was so convinced that I heard someone moving about the house. I listened for some time, and at last got up and came out to see. Out of the landing I realized that the sounds came not from down below, but from up above. I came along to the foot of these stairs. Again I thought I heard a sound. I called up, "Is anybody there?" But there was no answer, and I heard nothing more, so I assumed that my nerves had been playing tricks on me, and went back to bed. However, early this morning I came up here, simply out of curiosity, and found this. Kintron, though being Romaine, she might take a stab at Caesar's dressing. Oh, God. Kintron Valgrieg. Sir. No. No, 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 no. We do not do double puns here, sir. No. No. Bad. Bad wolf. Bad. She stooped down and turned round a picture that was leaning against the wall with the back of the canvas towards us. I gave a gasp of surprise. The picture was evidently a portrait in oils, but the face had been hacked and cut in such a savage way as to render it unrecognizable. Moreover, the cuts were clearly quite fresh. What an extraordinary thing, I said. Isn't it? Tell me, can you think of any explanation? I shook my head. There's a kind of savagery about it, I said, that I don't like. It looks as though it had been done in a fit of maniacal rage. Yes, that's what I thought. What is the portrait? I haven't the least idea. I have never seen it before. All these things were in the attic when I married Lucius and came here to live. I have never been through them or bothered about them. Extraordinary, I commented. I stooped down and examined the other pictures. They were very much what you would expect to find. Some very mediocre landscapes, some holographs, and a few cheaply framed reproductions. Excuse me. There was nothing else helpful. A large, old-fashioned trunk of the kind that used to be called an ark had the initials EP upon it. I raised the lid. It was empty. Nothing else in the attic was the least suggestive. It really is a most amazing occurrence, I said. It's so senseless. Yes, said Anne. That frightens me a little. There was nothing more to see. I accompanied her down to her sitting room where she closed the door. Do you think I ought to do anything about it? Tell the police? I hesitated. It's hard to say on the face of it whether it has anything to do with the murder or not, finished Anne. I know. That's what is so difficult. On the face of it, there seems no connection whatever. No, I said, but it is another peculiar thing. We both sat silent with puzzled brows. What are your plans, if I may ask? I said presently. She lifted her head. I'm going to live here for at least another 6 months. She said it defiantly. I don't want to. I hate the idea of living here. But I think it's the only thing to be done. Otherwise, people will say that I ran away, that I had a guilty conscience. Surely not. Oh, yes, they will. Especially when... She paused and then said, when the 6 months are up, I'm going to marry Lawrence. Her eyes met mine. We're neither of us going to wait any longer. I suppose, I said, that would happen. Darth, that was a good one. Kintron, good wolf. No! Again, don't encourage him. He'll just get worse. Excuse me. Ah, dry air. Suddenly she broke down, burying her head in her hands. You don't know how grateful I am to you. You don't know. We'd said goodbye to each other. He was going away. I feel I feel so awful about Lucia's death. If we'd been planning to go away together and he died then, it would be so awful now. But you made us both see how wrong it would be. That's why I'm grateful. I too am thankful, I said gravely. All the same, you know, she sat up. Unless the real murderer is found, they'll always think it was Lawrence. Oh, yes, they will. And especially when he marries me. My dear, Dr. Haydock's evidence made it perfectly clear. What do people care about evidence? They don't even know about it. And medical evidence never means anything to outsiders anyway. That's another reason why I'm staying on here, Mr. Clement. I'm going to find out the truth. Her eyes flashed as she spoke. She added, That's why I asked that girl here. Miss Cram? Yes. You did ask her then. I mean, it was your idea. Entirely. Oh, as a matter of fact, she whined a bit. At the inquest, she was there when I arrived. No, I asked her here deliberately. Darth, I encourage him because I know the wolf gets better with encouragement. Oh, what did I say? Oh, but surely, I cried, you don't think that that silly young woman could have anything to do with the crime? It's awfully easy to appear silly, Mr. Clement. It's one of the easiest things in the world. Then you really think? No, I don't. Honestly, I don't. What I do think is that that girl knows something, or might know something. I wanted to study her at close quarters. Sorry about that, my dear scholars. Oh my goodness, that was a little mistake. Virgil got his hands on, somehow got his tentacles on a phone, and he asked me to update it for him, so I had to step aside and do it for him. Virgil's not very tech savvy. Kintron, March 15th is a Sunday this year. What does that mean, Kintron? Why is March 15th? I feel like I know this. I think I know. Anyway, where was I? Oh, yes. No, I don't. Honestly, I don't. What I do think is that that girl knows something, or might know something. I wanted to study her at close quarters. Joey Jelly, beware the Ides of March. Of course. Kintron, don't think you're streaming, but it would be the day to beware. Hmm. Maybe I should do something on that day. Darth, don't Kintron and I make an entertaining duo of Matsu? Maybe I should do something. I'll think about it. I'll think about it. Excuse me. I wanted to study her at close quarters. And the very night she arrives, that picture is slashed, I said thoughtfully. You think she did it? But why? It seems so utterly absurd and impossible. It seems to me utterly impossible and absurd that your husband should have been murdered in my study, I said bitterly, but he was. I know. She laid her hand on my arm. It's dreadful for you. I do realize that, though I haven't said very much about it. I took the blue lapis lazuli earring from my pocket and held it out to her. This is yours, I think. Oh, yes! She held out her hand for it with a pleased smile. Where did you find it? But I did not put the jewel into her outstretched hand. Would you mind, I said, if I kept it a little longer? Why, sadly. She looked puzzled and a little inquiring. I did not satisfy her curiosity. Instead, I asked her about how she was situated financially. It is an impertinent question, I said, but I really do not mean it as such. I don't think it's impertinent at all. You and Griselda are the best friends I have here, and I like that funny old Miss Marple. Lucius was very well off, you know. He left things pretty equally divided between me and Lettuce. Old Hall goes to me, but Lettuce is to be allowed to choose enough furniture to furnish a small house, and she has left a separate sum for the purpose of buying one, so as to even things up. What are her plans, do you know? Darth et tu, Brute. Yes, yes. Fun fact, Julius Caesar is actually my favorite Shakespeare play, for those who weren't here for that last stream. Yes, it's my favorite Shakespeare play ever. Anne made a comical grimace. She doesn't tell them to me. I imagine she will leave here as soon as possible. She doesn't like me. She never has. I dare say it's my fault, though. I've really always tried to be decent, but I suppose any girl resents a young stepmother. Are you fond of her? I said bluntly. She did not reply at once, which convinced me that Anne Prothero was a very honest woman. I was at first, she said. She was such a pretty little girl. I don't think I am now. I don't know why. Perhaps it's because she doesn't like me. I like being liked, you know. We all do, I said, and Anne Prothero smiled. I had one more task to perform. That was to get a word alone with Lettuce Prothero. I managed that easily enough, catching sight of her in the deserted drawing room. Griselda and Gladys Cram were out in the garden. I went in and shut the door. Lettuce, I said, I want to speak to you about something. Yes? She looked up indifferently. Yes? I had thought beforehand what to say. I held out the lapis earring and said quietly, Why did you drop that in my study? I saw her stiffen for a moment. It was almost instantaneous. Her recovery was so quick that I myself could hardly have sworn to the movement. Then she said carelessly, I never dropped anything in your study. That's not mine. That's Anne's. I know that, I said. Well, why ask me then? Anne must have dropped it. Mrs. Prothero has only been in my study once since the murder, and then she was wearing black, and so would not have been likely to have had on a blue earring. In that case, said Lettuce, I suppose she must have dropped it before. She added, that's only logical. It's very logical, I said. I suppose you don't happen to remember when your stepmother was wearing these earrings last? Oh. She looked at me with a puzzled, trustful gaze. Is it very important? It might be, I said. I'll try and think. She sat there knitting her brows. I have never seen Lettuce Prothero look more charming than she did at that moment. Oh, yes, she said suddenly. She had them on Thursday. I remember now. Thursday, I said slowly, was the day of the murder. Mrs. Prothero came to the study in the garden that day, but if you remember in her evidence she only came as far as the study window, not inside the room. Where did you find this? Rolled underneath the desk. Then it looks, doesn't it, said Lettuce coolly, as though she hasn't spoken the truth. You mean that she came right in and stood by the desk? Excuse me. Well, it looks like it, doesn't it? Her eyes met mine serenely. Darth, I wonder if Lettuce has a cousin named Nappa or a cousin named Endive. If you want to know, she said calmly, I never have thought she was speaking the truth. And I know you are not, Lettuce. What do you mean? I mean, I said, that the last time I saw this earring was on Friday morning, when I came up here with Colonel Melchett. It was lying with its fellow on your stepmother's dressing table. I actually handled them both. Oh! She wavered, and then suddenly flung herself sideways over the arm of her chair and burst into tears. Her short fair hair hung down, almost touching the floor. It was a strange attitude, beautiful and unrestrained. I let her sob for some moments in silence, and then I said very gently, Lettuce, why did you do it? What? She sprang up, flinging her hair wildly back. She looked wild, almost terrified. What do you mean? What made you do it? Was it jealousy? Dislike of Anne? Oh, oh yes! She pushed the hair back from her face and seemed suddenly to regain complete self-possession. Darth, you know another thing when the family says grace, I wonder if they say lettuce. let us say grace. Oh, that's a bad one, Darth. That is bad. That is awful. That is awful. Excuse me. Yes, you can call it jealousy. I've always disliked Anne. Ever since she came queening in here, I put the damn thing under the desk. I hoped it would get her into trouble. It would have done if you hadn't been such a nosy Parker, fingering things on dressing tables. Anyway, it isn't a clergyman's business to go about helping the police. It was a spiteful, childish outburst. I took no notice of it. Indeed, at that moment she seemed a very pathetic child indeed. Her childish attempt at vengeance against Anne seemed hardly to be taken seriously. I told her so, and added that I should return the earring to her and say nothing of the circumstances in which I had found it. She seemed rather touched by that. "That's nice of you," she said. She paused a minute, and then said, keeping her face averted and evidently choosing her words with care, "You know, Mr. Clement, I should I should get Dennis away from here soon, if I were you. I think it would be better." "Dennis?" I raised my eyebrows in slight surprise, but with a trace of amusement, too. "I think it would be better," she added, still in the same awkward manner. "I'm sorry about Dennis. I didn't think he. Anyway, I'm sorry." We left it at that. Darth. So the clergyman was the one fingering. Yeah, I'm gonna cut this joke. Yes, it's a good idea to cut that one short, Darth. That's getting a little bit on the edge. Just a little bit on the edge. Okay. So I think, looking at the time, we're gonna do one more chapter. Also because I can feel my energy's a little low tonight for some reason. So we'll do one more chapter for the night, and then we will call it, my dear scholars. If that's all right with you. I also want to be careful with my voice. Chapter 23. On the way back, I proposed to Griselda that we should make a detour and go round by the burrow. I was anxious to see if the police were at work, and if so, what they had found. Excuse me. Griselda, however, had things to do at home, so I was left to make the expedition on my own. Excuse me. I found Constable Hurst in charge of operations. "No sign so far, sir," he reported, "and yet it stands to reason that this is the only place for a catch." His use of the word catch puzzled me for a moment as he pronounced it catch, but his real meaning occurred to me almost at once. "What do you mean to say?" This is a weird thing because she writes it in a weird like blur together. "What I mean to say is, sir, where else could the young woman be going starting into the wood by that path?" "It leads to Old Hall, and it leads here, and that's about all." "I suppose," I said, "that Inspector Slack would disdain such a simple course as asking the young lady straight out." "Anxious not to put the wind up her," said Hurst. "Anything that she writes to Stone or he writes to her may throw light on things. Once she knows we're on to her, she'll shut up like that." Like what exactly was left in doubt, but I personally doubted Miss Gladys Cram ever being shut up in the way described. It was impossible to imagine her as other than overflowing with conversation. When a man's an when a man's her poster, you want to know why he's an her poster," said Constable Hurst didactically. "Naturally," I said, "and the answer is to be found in this here burrow, or else why was he forever messing about with it?" A, re- a raison d'etre. Yeah, a lot of tough words tonight. Darth, I got my money's worth of jokes tonight, so I'm okay if the stream's shorter. Oh, okay, okay. "A raison d'etre for prowling about," I suggested, but this bit of French was too much for the constable. He revenged himself for not understanding it by saying coldly, "That's the amateur's point of view." "Anyway, you haven't found the suitcase," I said. "We shall do, sir. No doubt, not a doubt of it." "I'm not so sure," I said. "I've been thinking. Miss Marple said it was quite a short time before the girl reappeared empty-handed. In that case, she wouldn't have had time to get it up here and back. You can't take any notice of what old ladies say. When they've been seen something curious and are waiting all eager like, why, time simply flies for them. And anyway, no lady knows anything about time. Oh, whoa, 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 Constable, whoa. Whoa, what is that? Where does that stereotype come from? That's terrible. I often wonder why the whole world is so prone to generalize. Generalizations are seldom, if ever, true and are usually utterly inaccurate. Darth, shorter streams also mean I'll have more jokes for the next stream. Alright. Generalizations are seldom, if ever, true and are usually utterly inaccurate. I have a poor sense of time myself, hence the keeping of my clock fast. And Miss Marple, I should say, has a very acute one. Her clocks keep time to the minute, and she herself is rigidly punctual on every occasion. However, I had no intention of arguing with Constable Hurst on the point. I wished him good afternoon and good luck and went on my way. It was just as I was nearing home that the idea came to me. There was nothing to lead up to it. It just flashed into my brain as a possible solution. You still remember that on my first search of the path, the day after the murder, I had found the bushes disturbed in a certain place. They proved, or so I thought at the time, to have been disturbed by Lawrence, bent on the same errand as myself. But I remembered that afterward he and I together had come upon another faintly marked trail which proved to be that of the inspector. On thinking it over, I distinctly remembered that the first trail, Lawrence's, had been much more noticeable than the second, as though more than one person had been passing that way. And I reflected that that was probably what had drawn Lawrence's attention to it in the first instance. Supposing that had originally been made by either Dr. Stone or else Miss Cram. I remembered, or else I imagined remembering, that there had been several withered leaves on broken twigs. If so, the trail could not have been made the afternoon of our search. I was just approaching the spot in question. I recognized it easy enough and once more forced my way through the bushes. This time I noticed fresh twigs broken. Someone had passed this way since Lawrence and myself. I soon came to the place where I had encountered Lawrence. The faint trail, however, persisted farther, and I continued to follow it. Suddenly, it widened out into a little clearing, which showed signs of recent upheaval. I say a clearing because the denseness of the undergrowth was thinned out there, but the branches of the trees met overhead, and the whole place was not more than a few feet across. On the other side, the undergrowth grew densely again, and it seemed quite clear that no one had forced a way through it recently. Nevertheless, it seemed to have been disturbed in one place. I went across and kneeled down, thrusting the bushes aside with both hands. A glint of shiny brown surface rewarded me. Full of excitement, I thrust my arm in, and with a good deal of difficulty, I extracted a small brown suitcase. Oh dear. Oh dear, my dear scholars. Oh dear. My dear scholars, can you guess what word is used in the next sentence? Can you guess? Kintron, oh dear, how can we... Kintron, now's not the time! It's not the time for that. Can you guess what the next words are? Darth, unfortunately, yes. I uttered an ejaculation of triumph. Kidron, are you confused? Why do they have to keep using this word? Why? Stop it, please. Stop it, please. Darth, you're making it worse. You're making it worse. Oh no. Excuse me. Oh, where's Crusader when you need him? I'm not gonna say that sentence again. I had been successful. Coldly snubbed by Constable Hurst, I had yet proved right in my reasoning. Here without doubt was the suitcase carried by Miss Cram. I tried the hasp, because that's supposed to be clasp, but was miswritten, but it was locked. As I rose to my feet, I noticed a small brownish crystal lying on the ground. Almost automatically, I picked it up and slipped it into my pocket. Then, grasping my find by the handle, I retraced my steps to the path. As I climbed over the still into the lane, an agitated voice near at hand called out, "Oh, Mr. Clement, you found it. How clever of you." Mentally registering the fact that in the art of seeing without being seen, Miss Marple had no rival, I balanced my find on the palings between us. "That's the one," said Miss Marple. "I'd know it anywhere." This I thought was a slight exaggeration. There are thousands of cheap, shiny suitcases all exactly alike. No one could recognize one particular one seen from such a distance away by moonlight. But I realized that the whole business of the suitcase was Miss Marple's particular triumph, and as such she was entitled to a little pardonable exaggeration. "It's locked, I suppose, Mr. Clement?" "Yes, I'm just going to take it down to the police station." "You don't think it would be better to telephone?" Of course, unquestionably, it would be better to telephone. To strive through the village, suitcase in hand, would be to court a probably undesirable publicity. So I unlatched Miss Marple's garden gate and entered the house by the French window, and from the sanctuary of the drawing room with the door shut, I telephoned my news. The result was that Inspector Slack announced he would be up himself in a couple of jiffies. When he arrived, it was in his most cantankerous mood. "So, we've got it, have we?" he said. "You know, sir, you shouldn't keep things to yourself. If you'd any reason to believe you knew where the article in question was hidden, you ought to have reported it to the proper authorities." "It was pure accident," I said. "The idea just happened to occur to me." "And that's a likely tale. Nearly 3/4 of a mile of woodland, and you go right to the proper spot and lay your hands upon it." I would have given Inspector Slack the steps in reasoning which led me to this peculiar spot, but he had achieved his usual result of putting my back up. I said nothing. "Well," said Inspector Slack, eyeing the suitcase with dislike and would-be indifference, "I suppose we might as well have a look at what's inside." Excuse me. He had brought an assortment of keys and wire with him. The lock was a cheap affair. In a couple of seconds the case was open. I don't know what we had expected to find. Something sternly sensational, I imagine. But the first thing that met our eyes was a greasy plaid scarf. Darth, I do find it interesting how ejaculation meant something different back in the day. Now it's used for other things. I think it meant the same back in the day as now, but it was a more generalized term back then. So it was more like it could mean a lot of different things rather than the narrow use that we use nowadays. The inspector lifted it out. Next came a faded dark blue overcoat, very much the worse for wear. A checkered cap followed. Shoddy lot, said the inspector. A pair of boots very down at heel and battered came next. At the bottom of the suitcase was a parcel, done up in newspaper. Kintron, its meaning's the same, just purposes changed. Ejaculation means to spew something forth, after all. Whether words or that. Excuse me. Fancy shirt, I suppose, said the inspector bitterly as he tore it open. Excuse me. Excuse me. A moment later he had caught his breath in surprise. For inside the parcel were some demure little silver objects, and a round platter of the same metal. Miss Marple gave a shrill exclamation of recognition. "The trench assaults!" she exclaimed. "Colonel Protho's trench assaults! And the child's Iltaza! Did you ever hear of such a thing?" The inspector had got very red. "So that was the game," he muttered. "Robbery! But I can't make it out. There's been no mention of these things being missing." Darth. Ah, I see. By the way, you're reading that line with the word ejaculate. This makes me go for my mouth. It's trying to come again. Cheese curds. Oh, I would love some cheese curds right now, but perhaps they haven't discovered the loss. No, that's a different guy. Perhaps they, yeah, excuse me. Gotta get my voices right. Perhaps they haven't discovered the loss, I suggested. I presume these valuable things would not have been kept out in common use. Colonel Prothero kept them locked, probably kept them locked away in a safe. I must inspect this, said the inspector. I'll go right up to Old Hall now. So that's why our Dr. Stone made himself scarce. What with the murder and one thing and another, he was afraid we'd get wind of his activities. As likely as not his belongings might have been searched. He got the girl to hide them in the wood with a suitable change of clothing. He were to come back by a roundabout route and go off with them one night whilst she stayed here to disarm suspicion. Well, there's one thing to the good. This lets him out over the murder. He's nothing to do with that. Quite a different game. He repacked the suitcase and took his departure, refusing Miss Marple's offer of a glass of sherry. Darth, no, I meant cheese curls. Why do people not know what cheese curls are? I know what a cheese curl is. I haven't had one in a long time. Well, that's one mystery cleared up, I said with a sigh. What Slack says is quite true. There are no grounds for suspecting him of the murder. Everything's accounted for quite satisfactorily. It really would seem so, said Miss Marple, although one never can be quite certain, can we, can one? There's a complete lack of motive, I pointed out. He'd got what he came for and was clearing out. Yes. She was clearly not quite satisfied, and I looked at her in some curiosity. She hesitated to answer my inquiring gaze with a kind of apologetic eagerness. I've no doubt I'm quite wrong. I'm so stupid about these things. But I just wonder. I mean, this silver is very valuable, is it not? A Taza sold the other day for over £1,000, I believe. I mean, it's not the value of the metal. No, it's what one might call a connoisseur's value. That's what I mean. The sale of such things would take a little time to arrange, or even if it was arranged, it couldn't be carried through without secrecy. I mean, if the robbery was reported and a hue and cry were raised, well, the things couldn't be marketed at all. I don't quite see what you mean. Darth, okay, so explain what cheese curls are. Just have to really make sure you know what they are. Do you mean like the little, they're like the little cheese puff things that are curled around? kind of, with cheese dust on them. They're kind of like puffy cheese bite things. Yes, yes, those things. I know I'm putting it badly. She became more flustered and apologetic. But it seems to me that the things could just have been abstracted, so to speak. The only satisfactory thing to do would be to replace these things with copies. Then perhaps the robbery wouldn't be discovered for some time. That's a very ingenious idea, I said. It wouldn't be the only way to do it, wouldn't it? It would be the only way to do it, wouldn't it? And if so, of course, as you say, once the substitution had been accomplished, there wouldn't have been any reason for murdering Colonel Prothero. Quite the reverse. Exactly, I said. That's what I said. Yes, but I just wondered. I don't know, of course. And Colonel Prothero talked a lot about doing things before he actually did do them. And of course, sometimes never did them at all. But he did say. Yes. That he was going to have all his things valued. A man down from London. For probate. No, that's when you're dead. For insurance. Someone told him that was the thing to do. He talked about it a great deal and the importance of having it done. Of course, I don't know if he had made any actual arrangements, but if he had. I see, I said slowly. Of course, the moment the expert saw the silver, he'd know. And Cuthberto would remember having shown the things to Dr. Stone. And I wonder if it was done then. Like a demand, don't they call it? So clever. And then, well, the fat would be in the fire, to use an old-fashioned expression. I see your idea, I said. I think we ought to find out for certain. I went once more to the telephone. In a few minutes I was through to Old Hall and speaking to Anne Prothero. No, it's nothing very important. Has the inspector arrived yet? Oh, well, he's on his way. Mrs. Prothero, can you tell me if the contents of Old Hall were ever valued? What's that you say? Her answer came clear and prompt. I thanked her, replaced the receiver, and turned to Miss Marple. That's very definite. Colonel Prothero had made arrangements for a man to come down from London on Monday, tomorrow, to make a full valuation. Owing to the Colonel's death, the matter has been put off. Then there was a motive, said Miss Marple softly. A motive, yes, but that's all. You forget. When the shot was fired, Dr. Stone had just joined the others, who was climbing over the still in order to do so. Yes, said Miss Marple thoughtfully. So that rules him out. And we'll stop there, my dear scholars, actually on time. Huh. Oh my goodness gracious. So we have a suspect down for the count, and we have another crime having been solved. Interesting, interesting, interesting. So, next week, my dear scholars, if everything goes according to plan, Monday, we will be starting a new game. We will be playing upon request, long time request. Gotta check the name again. Horizon Zero Dawn. It has been a game that I have had a request for a long time, and I will finally play it here on this stream. And on Thursday, if everything goes according to plan, again, we will be reading more of The Murder at the Vicarage. For now, though, let's see if there is anyone we can raid tonight. Um, let's raid Legacy Bookish. It looks like they're reading a book. It's been a while since we raided them, I think. Let me just double check to see if they're actually still streaming. I think they are. So yes, let's raid Legacy. So then, my dear scholars, I say unto you, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, till we meet each other again at the study. Take care, and I shall see you next time. Till then, farewell and bye bye.